Do you break it up into chapters or just write a big long document and break it up into chapters later?
When I was like 11 or 12, and I was writing my big, ambitious Martian invasion trilogy that I was working on at the time, I just loved War of the Worlds. I don't know why. The first book, I broke into chapters basically whenever it felt right. But then I wrote the second book and then the third book with this weird arbitrary rule that each of them had to have the exact same number count as the first book. Because I'm an insane person and I'm just not interested in giving myself an easy time. Did something similar when I was writing my big, ambitious, epic fantasy series a few years later. And slowly but surely, after a while, I sort of fell out of that habit. I would start to write, and since I'm a pantser at heart, I would basically just write till I reached what I felt was a natural conclusion and then start a new chapter. I guess the rationale of that throughout the years for me was anytime I entered a new situation that was significantly different from the one that I was previously in, I would just kind of end everything on a cliffhanger and then start a new chapter. I was basically at the mercy of how bored or distracted I was from the previous situation. But nowadays I don't worry about any of that anymore. The most recent novel that I've been working on and workshopping, a horror novel, the first draft of that was traditional prose, which is just something I don't do with first drafts anymore. But I sort of wrote it in like a fugue state over the course of like a month or something. I basically took it to work when I was working at a call center and just wrote on my free time and didn't stop writing it until I was done. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I sort of made this decision weirdly, I guess, in the process of doing this, that I wasn't going to do chapters. I would just break up the action with like spaces or page breaks, but that was it. I want to say that like Terry Pratchett had something to do with that decision, but honestly, it could have been anything. Nowadays, it just really depends on the project. I sort of have like a ton of plot structure paradigms and disciplines either memorized or as reference materials that I keep around close by, and I just kind of use all of that as a guiding light. If I worry about chapters at all, it's after I've completed the thing, and only if it really makes sense to break it up. I also sometimes challenge myself to write a story based on, like, interesting processes or breakdowns of stuff from other works or other disciplines. And while I don't really make those into chapters, I sort of make them into sections, I guess. For example, I've written a couple of stories based on the 7 days in the week. I would like to write a story that is based on the entire course of a month, and each day is a chapter's worth of stuff. One of my bigger projects was actually based on the steps in the scientific method. I don't know if I'm going to use it anymore, but that's what I initially started it with. And an even bigger project is based on the colors in the color spectrum. Because I'm clearly not well, and I love to torture myself. Anyway, really depends if the project needs chapters or not. It's a case by case thing for me. I really do enjoy naming chapters, though. That's a hell of a lot of fun. Especially when I'm not being serious.